everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode is our third season finale, which we love to do these at the end of the seasons. Of course, we're not covering a movie, but we are covering, in a way, every single movie we've covered in this past season.
Yes.
The past 24 episodes or whatever. All of the movies we've covered since this season started. This is our look back special. We love to do these. Where we will be looking back at all of the movies and then all of the characters and monsters and creatures and disasters and whatever throughout all of those and breaking down our lists, our top 10 collectively. So we get a top 5 each. We have discussed them. That way we make sure there's no repetition. We get 10 on each list. And we'll just kind of break them down and give kind of quick little answers. You know, we don't want to be here all day, but we'll talk about kind of what really stood out about these things to us real quick and run back through them. And it's just a great memory time.
It is. And we know that you guys have really enjoyed the first 2 of these that we've done. So we decided to just keep it going as a tradition, much like covering a Tremors film at the end of the season.
And then, hopefully, because, the phone hasn't rang yet and I haven't looked at our messages, but hopefully we got some good feedback from you guys that we can read at the end of this episode as well. And, hopefully you told us what some of your favorites of these different topics and stuff were of the season as well. Thank you, everybody who's been listening to the show, whether you started just recently or this whole season, or if you've been listening since the beginning. We love all of you very much.
Yes. Thank you, guys. Are you ready, though, Pake? Are you ready to revisit this season?
Yeah, I guess so. We got to do it. Let's get to it.
Okay, so we will be going in a 5-to-1 order, like usual. We'll start with our number 5, and which one of us is going to go first? I do remember when we first started this podcast, going first was definitely something that we laughed about a lot because almost always I was the one that had to go first. And I just thought of that right now.
So do we stick with tradition then? No.
Was the rankings. Back in season 1 when we did rankings on movies, you always made me go first.
Yeah.
No, I don't mind going first for this one. So I'm happy to kick it off.
Perfect.
So our first category is characters. And so we're looking at our 5 favorite characters from the films. And my first one, my number 5, is Derek Cho from Mayhem. It was really hard for me to pick between him and Melanie Cross because Samara Weaving is impeccable.
Yeah.
And to not have her in my top 5, it was really hard. However, I had to go with Derek. He and Melanie were a badass duo. And I like that at the end, he decided and chose to live a better life.
I guess, yeah. Now that you've heard that, if you haven't watched all the movies we've covered, we probably will spoil things. So,
yes.
Hopefully you're okay with that. If not, then go back and, the movies you really want to see that are on our list that we've covered this season, go watch them. And this will be more fun anyway.
It will.
When you know what we're talking about. But yeah.
Yeah. I loved watching Derek plow through the Siren, the Reaper, the Bull, and that despicable Irene Smythe was super satisfying. So Derek Cho is my number 5.
And of course it's Stephen Yeun.
I know.
Our beloved Glenn Rhee from Walking Dead. So yeah. Which, I was looking forward to meeting him in a few weeks. Of course, unfortunately, things changed. He had to pull out of a convention, which, you know what? Talking about that convention, we will plug that.
Yes, we will.
I'll make sure to talk about that as it's coming up, but we'll save that till later.
Yeah, we're almost there. We're just a couple of weeks out. It's getting more and more exciting.
Reason to stay tuned is you can hear all the information about how you can meet a bunch of really cool actors and stuff, and maybe even me and Daphne.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, Pake, since we're not going to talk about that right now, why don't we talk about your number 5?
Okay, my number 5. I mean, obviously this has to be on the list. If you listen to the show, you know I've got to include kind of my celebrity crushes in a lot of little things.
Oh, goodness.
So, my forever Ramona Flowers.
I knew it.
My Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
I knew it.
So I got to talk about the character of Michelle from 10 Cloverfield Lane. Yeah.
Oh, man. I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
How to keep a Mary Elizabeth Winstead movie out of next season?
Don't.
I feel like I gotta try.
But yeah, of course. I mean, it's just that movie itself is so good, but we'll talk about movies later. But the character of Michelle, I mean, she's this person who's trying to figure out who she is, dealing with commitment issues and relationship issues and all of that, and just trying to get away and be something else. And then she finds herself in a terrifying, confusing situation that she has no idea what's true, what's real, and has to really believe in herself and find out what she's capable of and who she is in order to move on. And by the end of the movie, she's got a lot of different goals and thoughts about herself that she never would have expected. And I love that about her arc there. And she's just creative and clever. Thinks quick, and I like that.
I think you have to when you have a monster like Howard hanging around.
Yeah.
You have to be able to be nimble and switch it up as quickly as possible and make things work because he's always watching.
Yeah.
Scary.
Just like Santa Claus.
Oh, gosh. Santa Claus is not creepy. Howard
Unless
is.
It's Howard impersonating or embodying a Santa Claus mindset. Then it's creepy.
Then it's real. Oh, my gosh. Okay. Well, we will leave your number 5 alone, and we'll move on to my number 4. Which
do we have to? We can't just talk an entire hour about Mary Elizabeth Winstead?
No, that's a whole other podcast.
Okay, I'll look forward to that one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll put it on the schedule.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
For sometime in 2028. I think it'd be a good time.
I'll hold you to it. If we're doing it then that year comes around, I'm going to be like, hey, I'm going to put it on the schedule this year. You said so.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so my number 4 is Annabelle from Mama, played by the amazing Jessica Chastain.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw Annabelle go through so many things in that season. She pretty much put her life on hold, even though she really didn't seem to have any interest in having kids. But she set everything aside to help take care of her nieces, Victoria and Lily. Even though she and her partner, I don't think they were married. I can't remember.
Think so.
Yeah. I don't think they weren't married, but she put everything aside anyway to be a parental figure to those 2 little girls. And she fought hard to protect them, especially after all the trauma that they had been through. And the spirit of Mama, who is the antagonist in this film, which you can feel some sadness about because she went through her own traumas that made her who she was. I just feel that Annabelle was such a strong advocate for the kids and wanted to keep them safe, despite the fact that it wasn't something that she was really planning on.
Yeah, there's something very special and that stands out to me. As you'll see as we go through, not only Annabelle, but then like another character that's also in my list, and then a character that I've got in honorable mentions, and we'll talk about that stuff when we get there. But it's a character trait and a character, a kind of person that really stands out to me as somebody who's willing to lay things aside and really go out on a limb and take care of somebody who needs help. Anybody, especially children, but anybody who cannot take care of themselves, and for them to be able to put themselves in the line of fire in a lot of these cases, dealing with monsters and spirits and evil entities in order to protect and take care of these kids who have nobody else when they don't have to do that, when they're not in a position where they have to, that they are volunteering these things. I love that. And so, yeah, Annabelle was definitely somebody who would have been on my top 5, but Daphne had to take her. No, it's fine.
Yes.
We have to make our little trades to make sure we get everybody we want.
Yeah. Remember, there's someone on your list that is very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
And we will get to her in a bit. So, Peg, what's your number 4?
Well, my number 4, talking about kids needing support. What if it's the kid who's doing the supporting for everybody else around them? And so that is why I'm going to the sort of titular character of Norman Babcock from the Leica animated feature film Paranorman.
Aww.
Love Norman. He's awesome. He's a weird kid, kind of a loner, outsider, and he just feels like he's got nobody. Whether he's at school or even in his own family, he's just kind of alone. But then when he is faced with a situation where really he's the only person who can save the town, save what's going on, and it's only the way he does things, and because of his gift and who he is, he has to step up and face everything on his own. I mean, he ends up getting help from the people around him once they realize how important he really is and can be. And not just because of he's the one that can save things, but they really see him for the wonderful person that he can be. And so I do love that. It's a great story there.
Paranorman was my introduction to Leica.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have to make it a priority to watch some of the other films because it was so well done. It was charming. And Norman was just this kid who had to deal with a lot. So much. And I really love how they all came together to support him.
Yeah.
When he really needed it. It was heartwarming. It was a very cool, creepy, fun little movie. With lots of little, the messages were good. There was a good message behind it. So I really enjoyed it as well. So my number 3 is, and I had a real hard time, again, choosing between 2 characters, because I think the character of Sandy was also very enchanting and cool. But my number 3 is Eloise Turner from Last Night in Soho.
Yeah.
And I think that Thomasine McKenzie, the way that she portrayed her, really pulled you into being enchanted by this whole world of the 60s.
Yeah.
And connected you to Sandy and all of the elements that really made this movie special, as a whole. She makes you believe it. She makes you believe that she's mentally troubled and emotionally wrecked from all of the different experiences of teleporting back in time. It's crazy. And so I had to go with her in my top 5 because the movie itself was special, but I think there was something really amazing about how Mackenzie played her.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, and that's kind of my introduction to her. I hadn't really seen anything else that she had done until recently here, because Edgar Wright has a great way of finding just the perfect actors for his cast. And yeah, she was incredible.
He really does. And Anya Taylor-Joy as Sandy was impeccable as well. Just so fantastic. So yeah, that was my number 3.
Nice. Well, then my number 3, we'll go to the character that I was referring to earlier, about somebody else who puts themselves in the line to take care of those who need it. And it's somebody we might have had to tussle over a little bit, but I got her.
Yes.
Because, again, celebrity crushes, you can listen to me dote on actors and actresses and stuff when I'm like, oh yeah. And that is Lupita Nyong'o as Miss Audrey Caroline. Bum, bum, bum. So yeah. Miss Caroline from Little Monsters, a movie I had never heard of until you brought it up, and then I watched it and I fell in love with it. But also, just this character is incredible. Lupita Nyong'o is amazing, but then also the character herself, getting her backstory. I mean, she's this kindergarten teacher who had this kind of not necessarily super troubled, but just kind of a wild past that this is not something she ever saw herself doing. But, landed herself in a little bit of not necessarily trouble, but awkwardness. It could have been trouble. And she had to find herself grounded somewhere else where she started teaching as a ways to make money and realized this was her calling. And then you see how good she is at it, because the way that she is able to, through a zombie infestation, really keep these kids controlled and calm and protected. And, the way that she handles all kinds of crazy situations. She's a boss bitch.
She really is, in the most wonderful way.
Yeah.
I love how she just kept the kids in the zone like they were playing a game.
Yeah.
And I don't think they ever really understood that they were in danger. I think that she definitely kept them distracted and made it a fun game.
Yeah. She was also not willing to straight up threaten a man that she's going to kill him viciously if he endangers any of that.
Yes. Yes. I just loved her. She was fantastic in this movie. And I did fight with Pake over her because she's one of my favorite characters. If I had to pick a top 5 ever that we've covered, she'd definitely be in the top 10, if not the top 5.
Mm-hmm. Great.
So, my number 2 is another badass put in a shitty situation by a craptastic boyfriend, and that is Aaron from You're Next.
Mm-hmm.
I knew when we covered this movie that she was going to be on my list, that there was no way that we were going to get to the end of the season and she would not be on it. She used every bit of survival instinct that she had to try to keep people alive, even people who were behind the plot, to kill everyone. She was just really trying to keep everyone safe, even though, they just didn't want to listen to her at first. And then she just nailed it. She completely nailed it and took care of everyone. She nailed it literally.
Yeah.
And then there's that scene with the blender and Felix. One of the best horror movie kills I've seen.
Yep. Of course, she had the meat tenderizer that she never used properly, and I'm still going to hold that against her.
Oh, man.
But,
I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming.
The whole movie, she was just determined to not let me make that joke.
Nope. Yeah.
Not fair.
I'm glad. That's just a little payback for 30 Days of Night earlier in the season when I had to suffer.
Well, then my number 2, man, of course we're going to pick a lot of badasses because that's what you get when we cover these kind of movies, when we're dealing with disasters and monsters and creatures and things that pit people against some kind of other force or element. Then you're going to get the badasses that step up to take over.
Absolutely.
And that's why I have to go to Dawn of the Dead 2004 for the main man, Kenneth Ving Rhames. Holy crap. It's an intimidating force, and he definitely steps up and takes care of business.
Always. I don't think that they really understood. The security team, I don't think they got it when they let him in, that he was going to school them in how to take care of business. And I loved that.
Yes. He's just, the whole movie is him just, I'm going to get out of here alive. And if you want to also, you're going to listen to me and follow me. And, but no matter what, I'm making sure I get out of here.
Definitely. Yeah. Ving Rhames is just, he's always good in whatever he's in. He was also in another zombie movie, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but he also played a badass in that one as well and did it really well. So it's not a surprise that he would be able to really slay it in this role.
Mm-hmm. Literally.
So that brings us to my number 1, which should be no surprise to anyone who listens to this podcast. There was really nowhere for me to go but here. And so my number one is Chris Pratt's fantastic Owen Grady from Jurassic World.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that Owen had respect for the dinosaurs, especially the raptors, and was able to try to protect them as much as he could, even though it was really sad to see him lose all of them except one.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciated that he tried to educate Claire so much to have more respect for them because she looked at them as assets. And I feel like, especially when they were in the field of, I believe it was apatosauruses, and they were all dead, I feel like she really started to get it. That was when it started to hit her that, okay, you know, there's more to this than genetics. These are living creatures. And so I really appreciated that.
Yeah. Oh, and it just, you know, character standpoint, awesome. You know, he caring about the dinosaurs, doing what he can. But then, again, stepping up to help these two kids that are trapped out in the park, Claire's nephews that are there. But then, there's just something, you know, some people may say it's cheesy or whatever. We talked about this when we talked Jurassic World. But no, there's just something about Chris Pratt riding a motorcycle through the jungle with raptors running around him that will forever be cool.
You know, it's funny because there's a meme out there where someone took the picture of the raptors and made them ferrets. Uh-huh. And since I have ferrets, it's kind of funny. So every once in a while, someone will send that. And so today, it was actually my fiance who sent it to me. And I said to him, oh, this is very timely because today we're recording this episode. And Jurassic World is a big part of it for me.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. All right. Then we get to go to my number one character pick. Which, and I never know where these things are going to go. But then once I really start like breaking things down, I'm like, oh yeah, I feel like it's obvious. One of the most fun characters to watch. And this one, you know, I was going to say I might not try to spoil stuff, but I will. I'll have to in some degrees. But it's a little known movie, Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. Check it out if you can, because it's a smaller indie film, but it's so good. And the character of Leslie Vernon, which is why he's my number one pick, is just one of the most interesting characters I've ever seen on screen, because he is a slasher serial killer. He is Michael Myers. He is Jason Voorhees, but he's also the most goofy, silly, punny, charming guy who is just the most likable person you've ever seen. And he can get really dark. And he can be really creepy, but also whenever he's making jokes and, you know, he's talking about being a serial killer and his process and just joking about things, the whole, like, you know, you got to run like a fucking gazelle to keep up with them. But then when they turn around, you have to look like you're walking. It's tiring, you know, like things like that are incredible.
I never knew what to expect with him because I wondered the entire movie, is he really going to be a serial killer or is this a big fake out or what the heck is going on? Because he did seem so goofy.
Yeah.
And the way it was shot was just, it was really unique, the way that it flipped. Like a big chunk goes by and then it flips suddenly and you're not expecting it.
Yeah. I mean, he's somebody you're just like, who's super likable, and you're like, oh, I could totally be friends with this guy. He's real charming. And then, he's also a character that by the end of the movie, you're like, holy shit, I'm terrified of this person. Yes. He is ruthless and brutal and definitely is a very skilled serial killer. Yeah.
And Scott Wilson also, I think. But having that character and then also Scott Wilson's portrayal of his kind of like person that he looks up to. Yeah. I think that really enhanced it even more.
Yeah. Definitely. So that was why that is my number one pick, is Leslie Vernon.
Not a surprise to me. Mm-hmm. Do you have any honorable mentions?
I do. So I've got a little list. So we'll see who we have not talked about. First one, Darth Vader. Felix from Little Monsters. But I'm referring to him by his right name. He's Darth Vader. Because those are like the best scenes from him. Love those little moments. I mean, come on, this kid loves tractors so much that it saves the day. So yeah, I love that. I did have, Darius Bowman. Darius from Camp Cretaceous. Season 1, we covered that this season. Yes. The Dino Kid, the Dino Nerd, who knew video games, playing so many video games and being such a nerd would come into handy with so many things. Also get you in a lot of trouble, but...
It does.
You're talking about, you put Derek Cho in your top list. I did have Melanie Cross as a honorable mention. I definitely had to give Samara Weaving's Melanie Cross some love.
She's so wonderful. Sure. And there's a film of hers that I really want us to cover next season because she's just incredible in it.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I know exactly what you're talking about. And yes, we have to do it.
We have to do it, right? She's so good.
Yeah. A few others. Let's go to Tremors 4 for Hiram Gummer because it's Michael Gross. And
I can't believe that he's not on your list because there's always a Gummer on your list.
Right. At least honorable mention. He's going to be talked about.
Yeah.
But then also from that movie, Fu Yan Chang is such a fun character. Just that kid is great. Smart kid. I love that.
You know what? I feel like we need to add like a new category, something where we can really celebrate the kids. Because there are so many great kids in the movies that we cover that I feel like it's time to kind of celebrate them too.
Yeah. That's why I throw a lot of them into, honorable mentions kind of at the end to be like, they're fun characters. Like, do they carry the movies themselves? Not always. Sometimes they do. Look at you, Quiet Place. But, not always.
Yes.
But yeah. And then finally, again, talk about the people who put themselves in the line of duty to take care of kids and those that need help is Julia Meadows from Antlers. Is just love it a lot. Really vibed with her a lot watching that movie and covering that.
Yeah, she was wonderful. Such a great teacher caring for her students and being perceptive enough to notice the things that were going on.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that about her character. Mm-hmm. So my honorable mentions are Murray Forrester from the Tomorrow War. Such a great character. Not only the adult Murray, but the little Murray. Just fantastic. I also had Kenneth from Dawn of the Dead 2004 because, he was just amazing. And Ving Rhames is just, he's on a level all his own. And I also had Melanie Cross from Mayhem because I had a really hard time picking between her and Derek Cho. And Doug Roberts, the architect, played by Paul Newman from The Towering Inferno. Right. I felt like he did such a great job in that movie. And again, with disaster films, you're always faced with the same thing. People just don't want to listen.
Right.
It's annoying.
So not only are you dealing with whatever natural disaster or event or thing that's causing the problem, but you're also dealing with stupid people. So you kind of have to balance both things as a main character in one of those movies.
I feel like someday we're going to have to do some sort of look back where we look back at all the movies and pick some of the people that just had no clue.
our worst characters of the series.
Yeah. Worst characters.
Maybe that would be a fun, episode 100 around that area.
Yeah. Agreed.
Is to add worst characters of the first 100 episodes list.
I think that's a great idea. I already know at least one or two that have to get added. One in particular that I think Rima would agree with wholeheartedly. Oh, yeah. Okay, so shall we move on to monsters?
All right. Always love that.
All right, and I'm going to make you go first this time.
I'm going to go first. Okay.
Yes. And remember, monsters can refer to creatures, a virus, a fire, natural disasters.
Whatever the, protagonists are put up against in the movie.
Yes. I just realized, too, this is our first look back special where we're not talking about any A Quiet Place movie. Because we've always had that.
Yeah, we won't have another one of those until 2025.
Yes. Man. But it's coming.
It is coming. Which I'm excited about.
Me too.
All right, so my number 5 on the monster list. I mean, we wouldn't have a Ving Rhames Kenneth without the slews of zombies in 2004's Dawn of the Dead that he has to fight against, right?
Oh, yeah. Because I love the original Dawn of the Dead, it was really interesting to see these zombies be modeled a little more like speed-wise as to like 28 Days Later. Like, it was similar. And we're not going to get into whether or not those were zombies or not.
Right, yeah. Yeah, we're not opening that conversation. Ben. So, no. But, I do love those zombies are, because, you see a lot of, even earlier, because it is a remake. So then a lot of George Romero's actual movies that he did and his style of zombies, and then even going on to like The Walking Dead and different things where a big part of zombies are these slow-moving, shambling corpses. But no, in 2004, Zack Snyder's thought process was, what if they were incredibly vicious and really fast and like could fuck you up real easy? Yeah.
They definitely make you run for your lives.
Yes. You don't have to just like lightly jog for your lives. No. You have to run from these things.
You have to run. You better put on some sneakers and get stretched out because you're going to be running very fast.
Yes.
Well, I think that is an excellent number 5. And I'm going to take it in a different direction for my number 5 and talk about the amazing dragons from Reign of Fire.
Right, yeah.
It wasn't until we covered that movie that I realized or found out that so many of the dragons and creatures that we see today were influenced by the work that they did on that movie.
Uh-huh.
And so it was pretty cool to learn, especially to know that, like, the dragons from Game of Thrones, Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion were heavily influenced by what we saw from Reign of Fire. And though Reign of Fire isn't necessarily my favorite movie we've ever covered, I really appreciated everything I learned about the dragons because I uncovered a lot about the thought that they put into everything with them.
Yeah. So again, another movie I had never heard of until you brought it up on here, and then we decided to cover it. And then now I saw it playing on like TNT the other day. Oh, that's cool.
That's cool because you know what? The Meg is the one that's always playing when I'm watching TNT.
Right.
Like when I'm flipping through, it's, the Meg's on again. Now, I love the Meg, but it plays
usually the Meg
lot.
or the accountant.
Yeah.
It's one of those two.
Yep.
Flip a coin.
Yeah. So I had to pick the dragons because so much of it did influence what we see today, especially like the fire breathing part, like how they made the fire. So it was fantastic.
Okay. Well, my number 4 might be the first time I've picked something that was in 2 separate things we covered. Well, no, because we've covered in season 1 we did 2 Tremors movies, so the Graboids kind of play a part in that. But here again, something that is in 2 separate episodes, 2 separate things we covered, but they're in the same world, the Jurassic World, that is. And that is the Indominus Rex, which was, yes, a Jurassic World, but then also Camp Cretaceous season 1. Our campers had to deal with this terrifying mutant hybrid dinosaur as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's because it's terrifying, even though, it's not a real dinosaur that existed. It is a hybrid of T-Rex and Raptor and Pit Viper and
a
frog,
dozen other things.
and all kinds of other things, which then give it all of these kind of abilities and things that don't even make sense for something that's in captivity. It's like, we want it to camouflage itself. Why? So the people who paid to come in can't see it? That never made any sense. But okay.
Dr. Wu, he's always trying to make things bigger and better. And it was cool to see the perspective in an animated form because I'm so used to like the animatronic and puppetry that they do in the Jurassic films. So it was cool to get to see how they would pull that together in an animated environment.
Yeah. It looks just as terrifying. They did a good job with it.
All right. Well, my number 4, I'm moving to something a little bit different, and I'm picked ID7 Red Eye Virus from Mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
which was really... The virus was scary, but in some ways it was also hilarious because it took away the inhibitions from everyone and it made them start to like give into their deepest, darkest impulses. And that was really crazy because a lot of them just ran around looking completely crazed and trying to kill each other. But then there were other things they were doing. I mean, it was just, you didn't know what you were going to get. And I found it different and fun.
Yeah.
And definitely very bloody.
For sure.
Lots of different weapons used in that movie.
Mm-hmm. It's a virus, like a zombie virus, but instead of killing you or making you mindless, you know exactly what you're doing. It just, instead of lots of cannibalism, it leads to lots of gory murder and nudity. So, there's that.
Yes. The weapons, I mean, the nail gun, there were lots of different weapons in that movie. It's one people should definitely check out. Whether you consider them zombies or not, they kind of weren't. Just, they were still alive. They were just altered in a very creepy way.
Yeah. Well, then my number 3 is what is next. And we're going to go back to the very first episode of this season, the first movie we covered. And as we were talking about it, I was like, yeah, it's only the first one, but I have a feeling that these creatures are going to make it all the way to the Look Back special. Well, guess what they did? And that is the White Spikes from the Tomorrow War. As much as that movie itself was like, meh.
Yeah.
The creatures were awesome. And
They
that
really
design
were.
and the effects, like, that's something that will stick with you, being like, okay, these are actually really creepy, and I really love looking at them. They're so good.
Well, they put a lot of thought into them.
Yeah.
Like the dragons from Reign of Fire, a lot of thought was put into how to bring those creatures to life and make them so terrifying and yet cool at the same time because of the way that they looked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just the jaws, the teeth, the way they are so creepy and scary looking, but then also vicious looking, but then they shoot spikes out of them. They're like, there's just so many, like,
they're
really
lethal.
Cool things.
They're just lethal.
Mm-hmm.
But they're very cool at the same time.
Yeah.
You better run very quickly to get away from them. But take a quick look and see what they look like, because they're pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was our first episode of the season. The Tomorrow War. Seems like we filmed it like 2 months ago. It's kind of cool that we're already back at the end of the season. It went kind of quick. So my number 3 is probably, well, let's just say this. While we were split on our opinion of the movie, we did agree on one major thing.
Mm-hmm.
The vampires were some of the most gruesome and terrifying that we had ever seen. And so I picked the vampires from 30 Days of Night.
Yes.
Danny Houston was amazing as Marlowe. And they just basically brutally destroyed that small town in Barrow.
I also did a lot of like waiting around and not looking at things, but neither here nor there.
I know. But they looked cool. And when they were ripping things out, because that's how it seemed, they were very terrifying.
Yeah. That's a fun episode to go back and look at just to see how differently we view that movie. So that's, the vampire, but I never had anything bad to say about the vampires visually. I always think they look incredible. Are they very efficient vampires? Absolutely not. But do they look really cool when they're doing it? Absolutely. They look so good.
Yeah, that was probably the first movie that we really disagreed on.
Uh-huh.
I think it might be the only movie that we've disagreed on. Which out of 73 movies is not, or 72 movies is not bad.
No, not bad at all.
No, I think that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Barrow, Alaska stood no chance.
Could have been worse.
Oh my gosh. Even after months, you are still terrorizing me with what you think of that movie.
Right.
It always comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Oh, man.
I think the weather did them in worse than... no.
Oh, gosh.
That was the biggest factor.
I hope you're waiting for the one movie that's going to come along that I'm going to totally trash to pieces. I'm waiting for you to pick it when I know that I'm going to hate it so I can just rip it to shreds.
I mean, hey, we did Mars Attacks and you didn't destroy that one, so I don't know if there's anything.
Oh, that's probably my least favorite movie that we've ever covered. I think it's even lower than Turkey.
Yeah.
I think it's even lower than
that's saying something.
And it really is.
But all right, not to get too sidetracked, my number 2, we will go to something more recent than the last one that I gave, and that is the Wendigo from Antlers.
Ooh.
It's a creature and mythos and cultural thing that I've always, for years and years had a lot of interest in and thought it was really cool. And so to see it played out in a movie live action like this was really good. We don't see a whole lot of it, but we get more and more as the movie progresses. And by the end, you're just like, damn, this is intimidating. This is scary. And it looks that some of the effects, the embers, and how there's really no like organs and interests. It's all made of nature. It's roots and limbs and things, but it also can rip you up real bad.
Yes, it can. And you don't want it to, because if you get infected by it, it can be real, real bad.
Yes. So yeah, I have to pick that because it's just to see it. It's one of those things, I didn't know exactly what that movie was going to be when it came out and went to go see it in theaters and things. But as soon as I realized, it didn't take long because even pretty early in the movie, because I realized there's a lot of Native American culture and input. I was like, oh, it's a Wendigo. This is going to be fucking cool. And I was so ready for it.
I loved how they showed the beating red heart.
Yeah.
And then how she, defeated it. It was really well done.
Mm-hmm.
The effects. I appreciated that a lot. Because I've seen movies where it's not well done and it flops that way. So it really was cool to see it actually be successful.
Yes.
In the way that they put it out there. So my number 2 is, surprise, she's not number 1 this time. Although it was a very hard choice. She was a very small part of Jurassic World, although heroic. The poor, forgotten, last year's attraction, the T-Rex from Jurassic World. Mm-hmm. She did contribute to saving the day, and Claire didn't hesitate to call on her to be the one to save the day. Yeah. Because they needed more teeth.
Yep, more teeth.
Who has more teeth? So
Roberta, return.
She does. She pairs with a couple of unlikely allies to take out the scary Indominus Rex, which Pake talked about earlier. And so she had to be on my list, but she's not number 1.
Gasp.
That brings us to your number 1.
Yes, talking about number 1s. So here is definitely the first time I've ever done this. My number 1 is the same as my number 1 earlier, Leslie Vernon, from Behind the Mask as Leslie Vernon. It's really, it's like, oh, can a character be a monster? Absolutely. We've had Michael Myers for the Halloween movies on here. We talked about 10 Cloverfield Lane and how Howard, that character, is quite a monster in his own right. And so, the people can be monsters. And so, again, I hate spoiling Behind the Mask for people if they haven't seen it, but go watch it. Hopefully this doesn't ruin the movie for you because it's still great to experience and see. But talking about this character, this very likable, charming, affable kind of guy who is a serial killer. And throughout the whole movie, you're just like, oh, but I could be friends with him. And then when they take it from this kind of mockumentary, following a life of a serial killer kind of thing, to where in the last part of that movie where it all flips and it becomes the thriller slasher movie that we were wondering if it was. And then we see him in all of his serial killer glory, following through on all of the insider information and planning and things that he'd been talking about and we've been seeing throughout the whole movie. And then watching it all go exactly according to plan for the most part. is really cool. And this guy that you've liked the whole movie, now you are terrified for the people that he is up against, or really that are up against him. You know?
Yeah, I think with it though, even though we're kind of spoiling it, it really is about the journey through the movie,
Yes.
not necessarily just what happens. Like at the end, you need to go on the journey with him because
For sure.
it connects you to his character, and it makes it even more difficult when you do get to the end.
Yeah.
Well, so Pake did something for the first time, and I think I'm going to do something for the first time. So you didn't really think that I was not going to pick a dinosaur as my number one, right? I mean, come on. You guys know me by now. You know what's going to happen. And I really had to do it. It had to happen because in different ways, they were just the best. So my number one is Blue the Velociraptor. Yes, as I said, I had to do it. Blue looked different than her sisters, and she was the leader of the Velociraptors. And although she wasn't the alpha, because that was Owen, she was really the smartest, and she looked out for all of her family. And her timing to arrive in Jurassic World at the very end, I will never forget her running at the last second when you think the T-Rex, Roberta, is done for. And she comes barreling around the corner just as fast as she can go and helps the T-Rex push Indominus all the way to that water enclosure where the third member of this trio, the Mosasaurus, pulls her down into the depths.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fantastic. It's one of my favorite things about Jurassic World. One of the reasons why Jurassic World is like my second favorite on my list of Jurassic movies.
Nice. Good choice. Yeah, you got to have dinosaurs on here. So, giving a little heads up for the next season coming. We're taking a little break after this episode. We'll talk about that later. But then when we come back for season 4, we'll give you a little bit of a heads up. There's going to be a lot of dinosaurs and a lot of Jurassic stuff. We've got a lot to get through before Dominion. We've talked about it when we cover these movies and these shows. So we've got a lot of Jurassic coming up, which means that the next look back special, you're going to have a lot of dinosaurs to sift through. And I'm excited to see where that goes. But then when we get to like season 5 after that, we won't have any dinosaurs because Dominion will be done.
Oh.
Or maybe Dominion will be in season 5. I don't know. I haven't looked at what timing goes, but we're gonna run through them, and then we're gonna be done with Jurassic stuff, and then maybe we'll have to watch Velocipaster just so you can get a dinosaur thing in there.
No, the Jurassic Games. We can watch the Jurassic Games. I've seen that one, and that one's tolerable.
Right?
Not Velocipaster. No, it sounds really. I don't know. It doesn't sound good.
Which can be sometimes fun episodes when we know it's terrible.
Oh, yeah, Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Okay, so do you have any honorable mentions?
I do. I have to have a couple of honorable mentions. Of course, Mama from Mama is real terrifying, even though the CGI does not hold up like it did back in 2013.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, still real creepy. Still love that movie, and I think that when it works really well. Of course, we got to go to Tremors 4 for the next iteration in the life cycle of the Graboid that we got to see, which call the Grab Lights or the Dirt Dragons. These
love them.
Tiny little miniature Graboids that, come springing out of the ground like a demonic trout. They're incredible. So yeah, have to give them some love. And then finally, I had the vampires on there also. We talked about those. But then finally, just because, talk about bad CGI, but bad on purpose, these wonderful, wonderful, real rambunctious and tricky Martians from Mars Attack.
I knew it. I couldn't. I knew I wasn't going to get through it. Man. Well, There you go. Well, my honorable mentions include Howard from 10 Cloverfield Lane, because he was so creepy, especially dancing at the jukebox. That I'll never forget that as long as I live. Stripe, the menacing gremlin from Gremlins.
Yeah.
And I also had the white spikes because I thought they were just incredible. And my final one is Vic Hoskins from Jurassic World, because even though we had a lot of dinos running around, he probably was the scariest monster of them all.
Yeah.
Sometimes humans are just a little bit scary.
Vic Hoskins, Vincent D'Onofrio, he's great at playing just evil, conniving characters. Whether it's Vic Hoskins, or the Kingpin from Daredevil, or Eyes of Tammy Faye. He played Reverend Jerry Falwell. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's one I haven't seen yet. Did you watch it in your Oscar watch?
I did. I actually really enjoyed it. A lot of fun.
All right. Well, I grew up in that era.
Yeah.
And so I remember the Eyes of Tammy Faye and the makeup and, oh goodness, PTL. Oh, lots of craziness there.
Oh, yeah.
So that brings us to the movie/podcast piece of our lists. The third list in our series, which focuses on movies and podcasts. And so I'll go first. Pake, since we're trading off. So my number 5 is The Towering Inferno.
All right.
I had to pick this classic because, Irwin Allen was not called the master of disaster for no reason. He created some of the best, including this one, and a few more that I think we'll talk about in the future.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
This was a star-studded cast, had high-level actors, actresses from the time. And I was really excited to podcast about it with you because I knew that maybe you'd probably heard of it, but you had never seen it. And I love when I get to introduce you to a new movie.
A very
especially
old
a classic. Yes. Even though I think it was after this one that you said, I always pick the long movies.
Yeah, it was a long one, but that's not always a bad thing. Not always. So what was your number 5? My number 5, to go along with my number 5 character of Michelle, and we've talked about it a little bit, the number 5 movie of all time, well, at least of the last 23 movies we covered, 10 Cloverfield Lane. I love the Cloverfield movies. The first 2 specifically, Paradox. I think we'll still cover it eventually in the future, and we can get more in depth about that. Maybe I'll have a more appreciation for it, really breaking it down. Who knows? I
don't know, because I'm not sure that I know how I feel about it, and if you're on a similar wavelength, we may just talk each other into hating it more.
Yeah.
Or hating it, or not liking it even more than we don't.
We'll have to see where that goes. But at least for this one, I loved what they did with 10 Cloverfield Lane because it's a Cloverfield sequel that's not a sequel in any way. It is its own thing, which, again, that's a lot of the Cloverfield movies. I say a lot. They've done 2 more since the original. But both of those. And then, J.J. Abrams. There's his name. It came to me. It took a second. Okay. Yeah, J.J. Abrams, wants to do more, and he's tried to do more. Well, he'll take a script that already exists and then tell that story, that style of movie, and then work it into the Cloverfield universe with something. That's really what 10 Cloverfield Lane was it's its own story of survival and I can't think of words today. What's happening?
You know what? I feel like it's more of an anthology.
Yeah.
The way Cloverfield is set up. The series of movies is more like an anthology than a direct sequel. Because the stories are connected, but they're not really built off each other.
Yeah, I mean, it has nothing to do with the first Cloverfield movie until the very end, and that's even pretty loose. And so, but it's just so well done because it's very tense. Everything that happens just builds the tension and keeps you on edge. You know, you talked about the character of Howard, played by John Goodman, and how scary he can really be. And then you never know what's true, what's really happening. You know, is it all a lie or is it real? And you kind of go on this journey with Michelle where you can't trust anything.
You really couldn't. You didn't know if what he was saying was real or not. But I think there was definitely the moment where I realized he was completely unhinged, in addition to the jukebox dancing, which was bizarre, is when he just blatantly shot Emmett in the face.
Mm-hmm.
I knew then he was definitely bad. Evil. Crossed the line. So it's my turn then with number 4. Or did you have more that you wanted to say about Creepy Howard?
I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good on that.
Okay. All right. So my number 4 is connected to some of what we've already talked about today. And it is Camp Cretaceous Season 1 that we covered with our good friend Greg. I hadn't really made the time to sit down to watch that series until we decided we were going to podcast on it. We were definitely going to do it. He had already seen it, and I know, had said to us multiple times, oh, you guys should really do this. I really enjoyed it. I had such fun, like, watching it and then talking about it. It was so much fun to, like, break things down. But it also made me want to, like, merge it with Jurassic World and have, like, one long movie where it all, like, goes back and forth because it's all in the same timeline.
Yeah. It's really interesting to see. Yeah, it's I don't know. As much as I love Jurassic stuff, I don't know if I would have gone in and watched these things, you know, Camp Cretaceous, without Greg kind of really bringing it up and being like, hey, we should do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of like, it's on my radar, but on the edge of the radar. I was like, do I need it? Is it more of a kid's thing? But I'm glad we got pushed in that direction because it was a lot of fun. And we definitely, again, like as I said earlier, we got a lot of Jurassic stuff to get to because, yeah, we definitely want to go back, you know, through the rest of those seasons now as well.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about. As much as I'm looking forward to Dominion, I'm feeling like we need to push it into the next season because there's just going to be so much. But I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So why don't you give us your number 4?
My number 4, my favorite director of all time. Director of my favorite movie of all time. I'm a huge Edgar Wright fanboy, and so I was really excited for us to get to talk about and for it to actually fit in our realm, at least loosely, enough for us to make it work, is to fit in the newest Edgar Wright film, which was Last Night in Soho. It is just, to be able to nerd out about Edgar Wright and one of his movies on this podcast was really cool, with his style of just, like I said, perfectly cast actors, and everything just seems to fit and flow really well. The music being a character in that movie.
Yes.
And then all of like the little like cinematography and the way like he shoots things where everything is just so artfully done. And some of it is just, you watch it and you're like, oh my God, how did he pull that off? The timing and the things.
Yeah. I love what he does with everything. I just love how he builds the story. And I want more in this genre from him. And I know we talked about it too after we had both seen it. We said, oh, we should cover this. But does it fit? Well, we decided that it does, but we also ended up going on our friend Ben's podcast, Wilhelm, like that very week and talking about it because it was such, you know, we were both so jazzed about it.
Yeah. So I'm glad we got to cover it, and it's going to make my top 5 for sure.
Oh, yeah. It was going to make my top 5, but yeah, we made a few concessions.
Yeah.
Mine is coming up. I will get to the one that I won out on and gave up Last Night in Soho 4 is coming up.
Yeah.
So my number 3 is Dawn of the Dead 1978. It's kind of comical that you and I both, our favorite like movie in the zombie genre has the same name. It was just at a different time.
Yeah.
And so it was our first double dip that we did, which was kind of cool. I loved getting to break down this movie with you because I knew you'd never seen it, even though it was super long. You know, this movie was pivotal it introduced me to the whole zombie world. And ever since, I've had like this love affair with the genre because I don't even know why, but I've just been fascinated by it since then.
Oh, yeah.
So it was great to get to talk about it and celebrate the awesomeness that is George A. Romero, because his influence is still felt today. I think in every zombie film, there's something that pulled from him. So it was great to get to break that down with you.
Mm-hmm.
Another movie you hadn't seen.
Happens a lot.
Yeah, I think we decided early on that it's easier for me to find a movie that you haven't seen than it is for you to find a movie that I haven't seen.
Right. But I have done that a couple of times. I found
you have. And I've been happy with what you brought to the table, too. Like, it's really broadened my world of movies. And I may not have watched them otherwise, so it's cool that that this is what's happened, is my world of movies has just gotten bigger.
Yes. That's what we do here. Even for you listening, we'll hope to bring you some fun movies maybe you've never heard of or thought of that you've watched just to hear us talk about. And so that's always cool too.
Yeah. We have a movie planned for our double dip next season that I think is spectacular. So
yeah, it's another, we're taking two versions, because that's what double dip is a original and remake of a movie. And with this one, instead of us having our favorite movie be the two different ones, but it's more of Daphne has seen the original and not the remake, and I've seen the remake and not the original. So it's kind of that'll be a really fun one. But what that is exactly, you'll have to wait and find out.
Yes, you will. That's not available yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're not sharing it.
But my number 3, talking about movies that you hadn't seen before this podcast that I brought to you, is, we talked about it a little bit earlier, the Laika Studios Oscar-nominated, also I found out for that year just recently, which is really cool, Paranorman. So much fun, and got you into the world of Laika to where, I don't know any of the other Laika movies really fit this, except for Coraline, we will have to do at some point.
Yeah, we have to do Coraline.
But
I really want to see them. Yeah. I want to see them because I just love their style.
Yeah.
It's so unique.
Yeah, it's great because it is an animated movie. I don't know if I could call them kids' movies. They are kid-friendly, kid-oriented in a lot of ways. But also, there's a lot of dark elements and themes and things that are in the Laika movies that make it great for adults to also really get invested in too. But it's so unique because it's not just animated. It's all stop-motion animation from Laika Studios. And I've seen a lot of the behind-the-scenes things. I'm a huge Laika nut as well. And to see the hours and hours and hours and all the time and little artwork and the tiny little things that go into all the models and the dolls and the sets and everything for these movies, it's incredible. And to see it all play out and not just be, oh, technically it's great, but also that the story and the characters are also there. So cool.
Yeah, I am really grateful that we covered it. It may come up at the end of this podcast a little bit when we get to honorable mentions. Pake and I, when we compared our lists, found that some of our movies were the same.
Yeah.
So we had to shift things around just a little.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm grateful that you brought that one in and said, hey, we should really cover it. I know it's animated, it's different, but I think it fits and it would be something different. So I'm glad.
Yep.
So my number 2 is the movie that I fought for. And it is just probably my favorite episode that we did this season. Because we just had so much fun with it. And that is Little Monsters.
Yeah. I wanted that one. It was in my top, but I relinquished it to you for things. But yeah, because it's one that you introduced me to that I had never heard of. I think I mentioned that. And then I talked about, the character of Miss Caroline and just Lupita Nyong'o's, portrayal of that character. And I fell in love with it. And so good. Josh Gad is so good.
He's so good at being such a jackass.
Yeah.
Such a jerk. I knew when we covered Cooties, I've had this movie for a little while, and I was just waiting for the right time to do it. And it came along at a point in the season when we really needed something a little bit, not necessarily lighthearted, but with a little bit of heart, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I knew it was the right time for us to cover it, and I couldn't wait. And it didn't disappoint me because we had such a great discussion about it. It was just so much fun. So, yeah, that is my number 2, Little Monsters.
All right. Number 2 for me. I could have stayed in line and had this as number 1 because the character from the movie is named was my number 1 in both other categories. But leave it at number 2. Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. And I don't know what I can say about this that I haven't already said already. We've talked a lot about Leslie. But what the movie is because of him, like I said, it's this like mockumentary kind of style where you have this like journalist and her team who are following the self-proclaimed next Michael Myers, the next Freddy Krueger, the next big serial killer, and getting his process and how he picks his victims. And then, and they're following him like a documentary crew and getting all of his inside information. And then when it comes time for the big night to happen, they don't really want to follow through with it because they realize, oh shit, this is real. And then when they try to get out of it and maybe even intervene, things go bad for everybody, except for Leslie, for the most part.
Yes. Yeah. That was one, too, that I had never seen. When you brought it in, you said, we should really do this sometime. And again, timing is everything. For when we decide to do a movie, we usually, think a little bit about it. We know what movies we want to cover. It's just the order is never determined. I mean, sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. And this one we've been waiting on, and finally the time was right to do it, and it exceeded the expectations that I had because I loved the way that it shifted. There's just this point, and when you watch it, you will know. Yeah. It just shifts, and you're thinking, wait a minute, did I just see what I think I saw? It was very cool. Yeah. And again, the whole movie, you're just wondering, is this going to happen for sure? Is it going to happen? And then when it does, you're like, holy cow, I wasn't sure. And yeah, it delivered. All right. Well, that brings me to my number 1. And no surprise. Although I did have to debate it because Little Monsters, I loved us covering that. I wish I could find a third movie that is similar enough that we could do it because it just, there was so much heart in that film. But we're going to talk about my number 1 now, which is no surprise, Jurassic World. When I think about this movie, it's not only about Owen Grady and the Velociraptors and all the other dinosaurs that we got to see. It's also badass Claire Dearing running around in heels, kicking ass, and taking names. At some point in the movie, the switch gets flipped and she goes full on badass. I mean, you saw her being that way dealing with some of her stakeholders. Like she's very, self-assured. She's on top of it. She's confident. But then there's a point where she just realizes that things are different and she has to be in charge and work to help save the day. Yeah. So when one of them said to her, we need more teeth, she goes to get the T-Rex, which is it's just this climactic moment in the movie for me. Like, I just love it because it's like like I said, the downtrodden yesterday's news, forgotten Tyrannosaurus that comes in and is brought in. And usually they do. I feel like Roberta has come in a few times and she could have caused a lot more havoc than she has. Like, she hasn't really hurt, not too bad, our main, protagonist. Only that one lawyer that chose the wrong time to go to the bathroom in Jurassic Park. But I feel like she's been pretty good this whole time. So really looking forward to Dominion.
Yes.
I'm super excited for Dominion. So, Peg, what's your number 1?
My number 1, you did mention it earlier as far as favorite zombie movie, favorite horror movie, but also it always has kind of been, like I say, it is my overall favorite movie of all time, except for Scott Pilgrim versus the World. It is number 2 in my movies, all movies ever, but it is Zack Snyder's 2004 Dawn of the Dead. And so I was so excited to finally get to talk about this movie and to double dip it with the original. Was really fun and really cool to kind of see a lot of the things that are in this movie that I've watched so many times I couldn't even begin to count and tell you how many times I've seen it. You know, to then see a lot of these things that I love about this movie and realize, oh, they're a reference to this, or they're kind of a nod to this. And I really like that. And so it was really cool to take something I already loved and then compare it to the original version and then really break it down with you and be like, oh, now I just love something even more. Who knew that was possible?
I know. I love the idea of the double dip. And that was you. You came up with that, the idea to do a double dip. And I think it worked out great, which is why we're going to do it again next season.
Yes.
But I love that the first double dip that we did was Dawn of the Dead, just because of our connection to zombies. Like, how we know each other is because of The Walking Dead and a Patreon group.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to be able to break that down together.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, that does it. That's our lists. Once again, we've done it. We do have some honorable mentions.
Yeah.
But as far as our top 10s collectively, another season down. We've done it and broken down our overall favorites. But yeah, of course, we can throw in a couple of honorable mentions. Mine, I've got a few. Again, Mama, one of my favorite horror movies still. So, you know, it didn't hold up as well as I've gone back and watched it. But again, the story, the characters, and the things that are there absolutely does hold up in some ways enough to where I still think it is one of my favorites. I have to throw Mars Attacks in as an honorable mention. The movie is terrible, but it knows it is terrible. And really just the opportunity to have our friend Jerry on and just drop so many puns and jokes and torture you with it. It was a great time. So I was glad we got to do that. Tremors 4, The Legend Begins. Got to give a nod to that because as we continue through Tremors movies, and if you just listen to that, because that was last week, you know, it's the last movie that we did before doing this episode. It was cool to revisit Tremors 4 and realize like, oh, this might be my favorite Tremors movie other than the first one. Like,
yeah,
it's actually really, I forget how good this one actually really was.
Yeah. Tremors 4 taught me how we got Burt Gummer in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, it very well could have been a very different Burt Gummer had these events not taken place.
Right. And then last, I'm just going to give it a little nod to, it didn't do so well, and that's okay. As I said, but we wanted to try something a little different. Is an episode that wasn't a movie at all. We did kind of, just out of necessity, a look ahead special in the middle of the season, just to kind of do something fun. And although, you know, it was kind of, you know, like, you know, a lot of people didn't download it, listen to it as much, and we just kind of were pulling something together. But I will give a nod to it because it really helped us determine a lot of movies that we have now covered because of that, where we got to bring up some stuff that, you know, we may not have ever covered or that are new. You know, you brought up Reign of Fire or, you know, Little Monsters and stuff in those where I was like, I've never heard of that, but I'm glad you mentioned it. And it's like, we're putting it on the schedule. So like, I don't think we would have done Paranorman as quick as we did if I wouldn't have brought it up on that episode.
Yeah.
So I do have to thank that episode for some of the really cool movies we got to cover this season.
Yeah, I love that episode. And I feel like we may do that once in a while. It's not going to be a common episode like our, you know, look back special that we do every season. But I feel like every once, you know, maybe once a year, we can do that because I do think it kind of rejuvenates our list.
Yeah.
And reignites, you know, the excitement about movies that we may not have had high on the list before, but man, we need to move them up because there's something that is just calling to us at that time.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah. So those are my honorable mentions.
All right. Well, mine are Mayhem. Was very close to making the list because I just love that movie. And there is a movie that's similar to Mayhem that I think we should cover at some point. I can't remember the name of it. It's Office something, but yeah. So there's another movie that's very similar. It's not as good, but it's still fun. I had to put Paranorman on here because it was my introduction to Laika, and I really am excited to watch. I have to make the time to watch some of the other films by them because I just really loved it. It was just wasn't what I expected at all. It was just a lot of fun and creepy and cool, and I can't wait for my nieces to get old enough so I can introduce them to it.
Yeah.
Last Night in Soho, I have to say, because that's one that we also, both had on our lists. And I wanted to also mention my last one, Slither, because it's more recent that we did, and we got to have Des talking with us about this movie, this big, James Gunn's first movie. And there was a lot to love about it, even though there was a lot of silliness too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that officially ends our list. All of our lists. We've gotten through all of them. But what I really want to know, Pake, is our listeners, what episodes that we did this year, or what episodes that we did this season, I want to know which ones they liked and which monsters they liked.
Yeah. I'm curious. Of course, we may never know that unless they give us some feedback and send that stuff in. And I won't know that until our feedback phone has rang. So I'm just waiting. I was trying to cue it up and then it didn't happen. So I don't. Oh no, never mind. There it is. Okay.
Oh my goodness!
You're late to the party, feedback phone. All right. All right, we have a little bit of feedback this week for our finale and our look back. Thank you so much in advance to those who gave us some feedback and some thoughts. And if you didn't get a chance to, that's fine. Hit us up even next season when we, before we cover the next movie and we move on. We still always love to know what you guys think. Any feedback is always welcome and loved. So,
yes, anytime. If you're new to listening to us, if this is your first episode that you've ever heard, send it in. Let us know. We want to know what you think.
Yeah. Always love interacting and reading and listening and whatever from all of our listeners and friends. So it's a great time.
Yeah.
All right. So this first one is from Tony. We always can count on you. Love that. She says, congratulations. Thank you. My favorite episodes were 10 Cloverfield Lane, 30 Days of Night, Last Night in Soho, Dawn of the Dead, also my favorite monsters, Fast Zombies, yikes, and Mayhem. Thanks for introducing me to Little Monsters. I appreciate your work and can't wait for more. Also, I might even watch Tremors 4. I listened to your coverage and you enjoyed it so much, you may have convinced me that I need this in my life. LOL. I love that.
Tony! Oh, I hope you do. And please reach out to us on Twitter when you do watch it. Because I want to know what you think. Because I honestly was not sure what it was going to be like. And now, after seeing it, it's just endearing to me. It's part of the franchise. It's special.
Yes.
I like it a lot. So I wanted to bring up that a few weeks ago, my friend Howard Bannister commented on our Facebook page that he wanted to find out if we had covered The Stuff or Brain Dead. Well, Pake responded to that with, not yet, but probably in the future. I just want to say, Mr. Nick, I do not like Brain Dead. It is probably my least favorite zombie film ever. Because I don't like it. I never have. So if we do it, it's going to be an interesting podcast.
Yes. Which means we might still have to do it. So we'll see.
Oh, no. I don't know.
We have one more little bit of feedback this week, and this one comes to us in voicemail form, and it is from Damien. I feel like we can always look forward to Damien to come through on these look back specials, if anything. He's always coming in on these, and I love that. So I'm interested to see what he says.
All right, let's play it.
Hey, Daphne and Pake, it's Damien. I just want to leave a message for your look back special, a look back on season 3. I do have my top 5 movies that you've covered this past season. I was looking back at that list and it's like, holy cow, I can't believe it goes all the way back to October. It seems so long ago, some of those movies that still happen in this season. But my number 5 is going to be Gremlins. Of course, I love it. I covered it on my podcast for Christmas, and so did you guys. So Gremlins is my number 5. Number 4 is going to be Halloween Kills. And I like that because that was a relatively new movie that I got to watch and leave feedback for your podcast. I know, if I remember correctly, you guys didn't particularly care for it. I really enjoyed it. I actually watched Halloween Kills first, and then I watched the prequel to it, or the Halloween before that. And I thought Halloween Kills was pretty good. But anyway, that's just me. The podcast was great, though. I love listening to your take, whether it's positive or negative. Number 3, I'm going to go with Jurassic World. Just love that movie overall. Loved your podcast. Loved your coverage of it. I love that whole universe. Chris Pratt is awesome. Claire running in heels. That's awesome. Bryce Dallas Howard, I should say. Number 2, actually, my 1 and 2 are very much tied together. Number 2, oh, that was my dog. Number 2 is going to be Dawn of the Dead, the George Romero version from 77 or 78? I don't know. Anyway, love the blue-green zombies. They were fantastic. Love the whole idea of everybody just hanging out in the mall, having a good time, just having your way with whatever stores and get whatever supplies you need. That was just a great overall movie. Plus, it was filmed not too far from me. So, it holds a special place in my heart. But my number 1 is going to be the Zack Snyder remake of Dawn of the Dead. That was just so insane. Fast zombies. I know a lot of people in our group say that's their favorite zombie movie. It's one of my favorites. It's absolutely crazy. Love the cast, love the character arcs, love the story. It stuck close to the original, but did its own thing, which is fantastic. So anyway, congratulations on finishing another season. I look forward to your next season, which is going to end up at episode number 100. So that's going to be pretty special. I look forward to what you guys have planned. Talk to you later. Bye.
Wow.
That was awesome.
I love it because I think Damien did that last time.
Yeah.
I think he did come in with his top 5. I love that. If you guys are listening to this and you're thinking, well, I've got a top 5, send it in to us because we would love that.
I love them. Yeah. It's always great to hear the thoughts like that. Damien, that was awesome. Thank you so much. And he did mention his podcast. I'll plug podcasts in a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and pre-plug his for sure. Definitely check that out. He's covered a lot of great movies. He is the host of the Watched It in the 80s podcast. Check that out. It's great. If you are an 80s kid or 80s kid at heart, or if you just loved what was going on at that time, then definitely check it out because he's pulling all kinds of really fun stuff, gets all kinds of great guests, and yeah, he's awesome. We love Damien here, for sure.
Yeah, his most recent episode, the last episode was Ferris Bueller's Day Off that he covered with Jason. It was just so much fun to listen to. Well, if you'd like to send feedback and would like to know how to do that, I can help you with that. You can submit it via our Facebook page at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us on Twitter at RFYLpodcast. You can message us on Instagram at Run For Your Lives Podcast. And if you're enjoying the show, tell your friends. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much all the other podcast players, including YouTube. Go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links you'll ever need and give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as that's the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, really do. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And again, like mentioning, sharing the love. I'll give a couple shout-outs to podcasts going on around us. What's going on in the podcast universe. My other podcast, Strange Indeed. This week, we wrapped up our coverage of Season 3 of You. Me and Rima did. And that was a really fun one, interesting one. Lots of great dark humor and fun things to talk about on that one. It's a little interesting, but it was a good time. So yeah, always love doing all kinds of fun stuff. I'm not sure what we're doing next after we've wrapped that up. We'll figure that out in due time. I know we've got Stranger Things coming up in May, but until then, we will figure it out. So stay tuned. We will let you know. On House Podcastica, Daphne, you got something going on over there right now you're working on, huh?
I do. This week, Penny, Wendy, and I talked about Yellow Jackets episode 2. We're doing this it's kind of like we've seen the whole season. We're going back in these first 5 episodes. We're breaking each one down, knowing what we know now from seeing the whole series. And it's a lot of fun because we are pointing out things that some of us missed the first time through. And it makes for a great discussion. And Jason it's on the House Podcastica feed, but it's also split into its own feed called Yellow Jackets WTF.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And then also on House Podcastica, I know Jason and a friend of his, I don't remember the co-host right now, will be covering Moon Knight on Disney Plus when that comes out pretty soon. Not too far away from that.
Looking forward to that one. In our house, we're big fans of Moon Knight.
Yes. And speaking of Moon Knight, of course, you can also catch coverage of that over on Panels to Pixels when it starts as well. But right now, over on Panels, they are covering The Witcher. That would be Steve and Laura doing The Witcher Season 2, going through episode by episode of that one. And then Steve and Daphne right here. So you are pulling all kinds of triple duty right now. You busy podcast world.
I'm so busy. It's not often that I'm busier than you.
Right. Now I'm the one that's not doing anything else with this right now. But you and Steve are covering Snowpiercer Season 3 right now.
Yeah. It's been really good. The episodes are great as always, and it pushes the boundaries, I think, of what you should be able to see on a regular cable TV show. So it's great.
See, on the Walking Dead cast, Jason and Lucy are back, and The Walking Dead is back. We have part 2 of the final season, season 11, going on right now, and they are breaking that down week to week as new episodes come out on AMC. So definitely, if you are watching The Walking Dead and a fan of that, check that out. They are awesome. Yeah. On TV Podcast Industries, they are covering season 2 of Picard. So you Trekkies out there, check them out and check that out. We did talk about the Watched It in the 80s podcast a little bit earlier with our good friend Damien. And so Daphne mentioned what they did last week. This week, Damien and his friend Tom are discussing Roadhouse. And so that should be out next week, I think. So not this week, but next week. So yeah, check that out next week for sure. Keep your eye on Watched It in the 80s because Roadhouse. and finally, our good friend Ben over with Wilhelm, which if you were subscribed to the original Wilhelm feed, make sure that you go to his website and Facebook page and things like that to subscribe and follow the new feed. Wilhelm has moved to the feed that used to be the Spotlight podcast with Ben Beck. He's combined both of those podcasts into one under the Spotlight feed because that one was out a lot longer before, where he is interviewing different celebrities and actors and things like that. And the Spotlight episode that is just released recently is his interview with Chad Coleman, who is Cuddy from The Wire, Tyrese from The Walking Dead. He was also in Arrow for a little while, and so he's done some really cool stuff. So check out Ben's interview with Chad Coleman on the Spotlight, or it's Spotlight's segment on the Wilhelm podcast.
Funny thing, Chad Coleman and you and I are all going to be in the same place in a couple weeks.
Yes, absolutely. I think I plugged it last week, and then I think I hinted at it earlier in this episode. But yes, me and Daphne, along with a lot of the people that I just mentioned, Damien and Jason and Ben and Wendy and everybody that we've just talked about, we will be in Atlanta, Georgia, coming up really soon, March 18th, 19th, and 20th for the Fandemic Dead convention. And yeah, so if you live in Atlanta or in the area and you want to come out, see us from Podcastica and Pirate Core and all of us podcasters here in our universe, we'll be hanging out there. Come see a bunch of great actors, celebrities, a lot of cool things. Some of us are going to be moderating panels, others hanging out, doing some cool stuff. we'll definitely be having listener meetups, or at least a listener meetup somewhere that even if you're not at the convention, if you don't have a ticket to the convention, still hit us up on social media and you can come to the meetup and come say hi. We would love to meet anybody and everybody who would like to come see us. So definitely don't hesitate to come say hi to me or Daphne or anybody else that in the Podcastico world that will be there. It's going to be a good time for sure. So Pandemic, if you are going or planning on going or didn't know about it, but now you want to go, definitely check out the guest list, check out what's going on. It's coming up really soon, and it is going to be a blast.
It is. It's my first convention. I know I've mentioned that before. I'm glad that I get to experience it with really good friends. It's going to be great.
I'm excited. Very, very excited. So I usually this would be the part where I'd ask you, tell everybody what's coming up next on Run for Your Lives. But, well, the answer to that is nothing.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah, we're not over. We're not canceled. We're not over.
No. It's the end of the season. We're going to take some time off. We have a bunch of different things outside of the podcast that we're doing. Plus, we'll also be recording some episodes. So we're just going to be gearing up for season 4 of Run for Your Lives. It doesn't seem possible that this is our 4th season that's coming up.
It'll be awesome. But got a bunch of stuff coming up just in personal lives and things. So taking a little break, and then we'll make sure to get back on recording some episodes and be ready for the next season to drop. But in the meantime, we'll probably be gone for about a month or so. You don't have to miss us too bad, because you can always go back and check out any episodes that you have not listened to already. Or if you are newer to the podcast, we've got, a good 75 episodes worth of stuff to listen to. So you can always go back and check out all the movies and all the things that we've covered and talked about. I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I would say there's some good ones in there.
There really are. Looking at movies and doing a podcast it gives you the opportunity to look at things with a different lens. Sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's not. I'm thinking about The Happening in particular. But it's been a lot of fun to do this, and we're going to just take a break. We're going to come back refreshed and ready to bring you a whole new slate of movies. If you have ideas on what we should cover, or just want to say, hey, we like your podcast, we're definitely down to hearing that. Reach out to us on social media. For
sure. We will not be off the grid completely. We're still around.
No, we're still around. And with that, we've reached the end of another terrifying, fun adventure of a season. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run from dinosaurs, dragons, alien life forms, Martians, zombies, Romero or Snyder, White Spikes, vampires, dirt dragons, gremlins, fires, Michael Myers, Leslie Vernon, or the ID7 Red Eye virus, you'd better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.